Welcome, everybody, to another segment of the Real Mike Pittman Podcast. And joining me on the show today is Mr. Eddie Kimble. Eddie is the owner of EDK Defensive Consultants. Eddie, thank you for coming on the show. And tell us a little bit about Eddie, if you would, please. And kind of brief, I have several questions for you, but some of them I'll probably ask you. But tell us a little bit about Eddie Kimble.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks, Mr. Pittman, for having me on the podcast. It's an honor to be here with such a great person as yourself. Just a little bit about Eddie. Born and raised Chicago. Migrated from projects outside, suburbs, back to the south side. Went into the military November of 90. Came out in 93. And due to work, ended up relocating here to Springfield. December will be 10 years. And so God has opened a lot of doors for us. We've done a lot of things, made a lot of adjustments, and now we call the Springfield area home now. So here we are.
All right. Family, I know, tell us a little bit about your family, children, wife.
Yeah, so my wife and I, we've been together for 20 years, and May will be married for 20 years. We're almost empty nesters. Our youngest will be 17 in December. And so sort of kind of maybe looking for the empty nester, but just want to make sure, she gets on the right track when she goes to college. I do have other children down here. Actually, all of my children are in the Springfield area. So really thank God for that. Yeah, I'm a grandfather. I have three grandchildren living here in Springfield. We just actually had grandparents date with our grandchildren last Friday and went to Malibu Jacks with them and spent quite a bit of money. So
Okay. Well, let me get into some of the questions that I had for you, if you will. EDK, how did it start? How did EDK start? Where did that start from?
so EDK was birthed out of COVID when the country and the world shut down March 16th of 2020. Quite a few people who knew me called me on the phone and said, "Hey, I need to do some gun training. I need to get concealed carry. Can you help me?" And at the time, I was not a concealed carry instructor, but I knew a few state troopers who were. And so I was able to get them 13 students to take a concealed carry class. And once I saw that, I decided this is something I should look into. And once I did that, I reached out to USCCA, United States Concealed Carry Association, and I did my instructor training with them. And then I launched EDK Defensive Consultants LLC October of 2020. And it's been 3 years now. The October 1st made 3 years, and we've taught just under 500 students in those 3 years.
Hmm. And when you talk about the students, what does your average student look like? A young, old, black, white? Tell us about
Well,
your average student.
interestingly enough, my portfolio includes teaching children. I've taught as young as 7 years old when it comes to firearms and safety. The demographics of my training classes have changed. To be honest, when I first started, I had middle age adults, late 20s, 30s, and 40s. Now I'm having 21, 22-year-olds taking a class. I've had as young as 86, 85, 79 taking a class. And so it's a large shift in people getting concealed carry because they feel they need to protect themselves and to be able to defend themselves.
Well, I know, with all the mass shootings and things that have been going on, and I just read somewhere today, I believe it was CNN, where they talked about, especially I guess within the Jewish community, that it's been an uptick in terms of Jewish people that are arming themselves and taking classes because of the things that are going on over in Israel right now. So um, I thought that was really interesting, as well as the number of blacks that are also arming themselves. What what do you feel uh, in terms of uh, gun safety, if you will, in terms of how important it is to learn how to properly operate or use a firearm.
Yes, sir. Well, according to statistics, over the past 3.5, almost 4 years, gun ownership in African American community have more than
I think you're freezing up on me.
yeah, there we
You
go.
froze up on
Women
me.
are by, is that better now?
Yeah. Uh huh.
Women by large and by far are the biggest, um, if you will, newbies in the firearm industry. Um, for many reasons. And what's happening overseas, before I actually get to that, a lot of people talk about mass shootings in this country, and it's definitely unfortunate. And without saying it's something that should not be happening. But when you look at people like myself who believe in the right to bear arms to defend themselves, it's not a hidden secret that most mass shooters go to places the house says on the door that says no guns allowed. And instead of our country realizing that we are actually putting up a sign say if you come in here to hurt people, no one is here to defend themselves. And instead of our country looking at it that way, they're saying, what can we do to stop law-abiding citizens from defending themselves? And I just think they're looking at it totally the wrong way. And for that reason, mass shootings will continue. When COVID was happening, there were no mass shootings, Mike. Why not? Because people were not out and about. And so the things that's happening in Israel is it's gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching because we are helping Israel, we're helping Ukraine, and yet and still we're telling Americans you cannot arm yourselves to protect yourselves. I just don't understand how motherland is helping other countries to defend themselves, but won't allow us to defend ourselves.
Well, I know you stated that you were from Chicago, which is there's a lot of gun violence in the Chicago area right now. A lot of carjackings that have taken place this year in terms of, I think it's doubled or tripled in terms of the number of carjackings. The critics, if you will, those individuals, that talk about, uh, people use guns to kill people. What do you say to those critics in terms of being able to protect yourself? That you would have, I guess, what would your argument be against the gun violence? Not so much the gun violence, the gun laws or the proposed gun laws that are trying to be put into effect. I know they talked about assault weapons and
Hmm.
being able to have a ban on that. What's your take on that?
So there's a couple of things encompassed in your questions, and starting with Chicago, the reason Chicago violence is at all-time high is because the criminals in Chicago know that people cannot arm themselves. If you look at the FBI statistics, anytime in our country, regardless if it was something political, a catastrophe like Hurricane Katrina, a pandemic like COVID, when people arm themselves to defend themselves, violent crimes decrease. When you go into Chicago and every hotel downtown says no guns, every restaurant says no guns allowed, every venue in the downtown area says no guns allowed, the criminals know that. So guess where they prey? In those areas. When it comes to carjackings, right? Carjackings are now 3 to 5 people that's carjacking you. And so if you're not prepared, if you have not properly trained and feel comfortable defending yourself, you're going to become a victim. And unfortunately, Chicago has victimized all of the law abiding citizens. When it comes to the ban that's in place, I think it's totally hypocritical for a person who has 24-hour security to tell me, a veteran who used an AR-15 style rifle to defend this country, that I can't buy, sell, trade, or have one to carry in public. If you don't have a 24-hour security team that's protecting you with the same weapons you're banning from us, then I can hear you, and the other people in the state will hear you. But you have a 24-hour security team that carry the weapons that you're telling us we cannot. And if you look at the statistics, Mike, most of the mass shootings, about 80 to 90% of the mass shooters are using handguns. Okay. They don't tell you that. And then they say, well, the magazine capacity is too high. Well, if you look at what the FBI reports, the mass shooters who do use an AR style rifle never go through the entire magazine. They've made up in their mind they're going to shoot and then reload. So to tell a law abiding citizen that 18 rounds in a firearm should be illegal, but yet and still your protective detail carries 18 or 20, I think that's totally hypocritical. And I don't agree with it.
Interesting. Talk about the course that you teach. When you talked about gun safety, and we talked about concealed carry. In Illinois, what is required in order to get a concealed carry permit? What exactly do you have to do, and from a classroom standpoint, and from a gun ownership standpoint?
So Illinois is the only state that requires firearm owners to get a FOID card first, firearm identification card. The only state that requires that. So you have to get that first. As of January 1 of 2022, you can get your FOID card at the same time that you are applying for your concealed carry. It was not like that prior to that. You would get the FOID card first and then do the concealed carry. But now you can take a concealed carry class and then apply for both of them at the same time because they're now one card. Okay. Illinois requires that you do 16 hours of training. There are several institutions that the Illinois State Police acknowledge for training. USCCA, United States Concealed Carry Association, is one. The NRA, the National Rifle Association, is another. So you'll do your 16 hours of training, which includes qualifying at the firearm range or the gun range. You have to shoot 30 rounds, and you have to score 21 out of 30 in order to pass that qualification. In my classes, we do a lot of hands-on training. We have cert pistols and other tools to teach our students how to properly grip that firearm, become proficient with it. And then we go over real life scenarios. USCCA has provided us with scenarios, and we go over those scenarios in depth in our class so that when our class is over and people go out into the real world, they know what to expect as much as possible from me as an instructor.
So in the 16-hour class, is that taken over the course of a weekend then, or several classes during the week? How are the 16 hours in terms of how you teach the classes? How is that split up? It's a couple days, 3 days?
In Springfield, we typically do a Saturday, Sunday class. But I have done the specialty classes for families and for businesses. So some businesses, they operate on Saturday, but they close on Sunday. So with me being an instructor and having the liberty to do this, I've taught them a couple of days during the week. So from, let's say, 5 to 9, 2 days. And then on Sunday, we do that last 8 hours. So those are things that I have done to help train and educate responsible gun owners and to help them get their concealed carry and be proficient with their firearms.
Now, what does concealed carry consist of in Illinois? I know when you're in your vehicle, what are the laws that state that can you have your gun on you? Does it have to be put in your glove department, or just enlighten us on that, if you will?
Yes, sir. So if you only have a FOID card, you may travel with your firearm, but the ammo and the firearm cannot be readily accessible with each other. The law states that it must be encased. According to the Illinois Supreme Court, an armrest is a case. A glove compartment is a case. So no, you don't put the magazine into the firearm, load a round, and then put it in your armrest. If you have concealed carry, you can do that. If you only have a FOID card, you cannot. So you definitely want to go to the ISP website and read up on the laws and the rules around that. With concealed carry, the law allows you to carry mostly concealed or fully concealed. What does that mean? That means when my firearm is under my garment and I'm at the store and I reach down to tie my shoes, there is a slight chance that maybe you'll see me print or see a part of my firearm. I stand up, I pull my garments back down. I continue on with life as usual. In your vehicle, you are allowed to have a fully loaded firearm on your presence, regardless if it's in your car or on you, if you have your Illinois concealed carry license. What I suggest and what I teach to my students is if you are traveling with a firearm, regardless if you're doing it the Floyd legal way or if you're carrying concealed, if by chance you get pulled over by law enforcement, roll down all of your windows, turn on your dome lights if it's at night, have your driver's license and FOIA card or your driver's license and your concealed carry card in your hand and hand that to the police officer. What you have just done is inform that officer that A, you're driving legally because you have a driver's license, but B, you have a firearm in your car that the law allows you to legally carry.
I think about that the young man that was gunned down by a police officer. I believe it was in Minnesota. Was it Philando uh,
Castillo.
Castillo? And he actually had he legally could have a firearm, and I think he told the police officer that he had a firearm, and yet he was still shot and killed. Talk a little bit about that in terms of the amount of police violence against young blacks or blacks in general, in terms of how it's viewed when you have a weapon in your car and the police pull you over for maybe no apparent reason. And I can understand police officers not if they don't know who you are, they pull you over, and you have a vehicle. One is that they're fearing for their lives as well. So, do you think that situation could have been handled different? I'm sure it could have been handled different because if it was, Mr. Castillo would still be alive. What would you have recommended in that situation in terms of how that turned out? What would you have done differently?
Well, according to the law, Mr. Castillo did exactly what he should have done. He informed the officer. First of all, he wasn't even driving the car. So the fact that all the attention was focused on him, to me, was unjustly. He revealed that he was legally carrying a firearm, and he had proper identification to show that. Um, I I always wanted to be a law enforcement officer coming up as a kid. I understand law enforcement. I did the Citizens Academy with the Springfield Police Department. I also did a 9-week course with the FBI as a Citizen Academy cadet with them as well. I did a ride along with the Springfield Police Department at night to get an understanding and a feel of what they see and what they go through when they do stops when it's dark outside. So I do understand their perspective. However, being an African American male in the United States of America, there has been quite a few um, things done to black men in this country by police that I totally frown upon. It You can tell it has been the culture of training overall in some departments. In other departments, it hasn't. I've been in Springfield for 10 years. I've been profiled once. I grew up in Chicago the other 45 years, and I was profiled more times than I can count. So, people, it depends on where you are and where you live. Depends on the training of the police officers. Chief Winslow, I took my head off to him. And then now we have, wow, I just lost his name, our new chief,
Scarlett.
um, Scarlett. And I took my head off to him. Both of those gentlemen welcome you to come and talk to them. They welcome ride alongs. They want you to see and understand and communicate with law enforcement. So I really appreciate the training from the top down. Unfortunately, there's places, Mike, where you go and you might have police officers who are not, properly trained or they're fearful for their lives. There was a shooting not long ago where a police officer get on scene and within seconds he's discharging his firearm because he thought he saw a gun in the lap of the driver. Now the driver did break some laws, but the driver didn't even have a firearm in his car. So it's with me being on the outside looking in, it's easy to point fingers and blame. But in all reality, as a black man in this country, most of my students who are African American males, they cringe once they get their concealed carry because they say, now I just got to live if I get pulled over. And it shouldn't be that way in this country.
Hmm. Now, when you talk about guns and the history of guns, how did you first become interested in weapons? Was when you went to the service and you got out? Was that your first experience with weapons when you went in the service, or prior to going, you still had some experience, if you will, in handling weapons?
Well, funny enough, Mike, um, my dad and dad was born in the Delta of Mississippi, where they kept guns all around the house and everything like that. Um, at to this date, I'm 55. I saw my dad's firearm twice in my life. But years ago, I was able to take my very first firearms training class at my junior college. And then I got a job working with the armored car company. So I would drive the messengers who would go out and take cash to the banks and the credit unions and the currency exchanges. And then I got promoted, and then I was a messenger. We had to qualify with firearms then in order to do that job. So that was the second time that I worked with firearms. I got trained within a junior college, and then I carried a firearm for that job. I then went to the military. In the military, I never touched a handgun. I always had that trustworthy M16. Everywhere I went, she went. Where I laid, she laid. When we were bivouacking in the woods and all like that. So, but I really enjoyed shooting when I was in the military. Shooting my M16, it was a lot of fun, a lot of target practice. We took it apart, blindfolded, put it back together. When I came back home, I went back to the armored car company. And then years down the line, I ended up working for a security company. That security company got special details. We did details for Jennifer Hudson, Freya Hammond, Smokey Norfolk, and others. And then one thing led from there, and I just started to evolve into firearms. I'm not a gunsmith by any means, but I just like shooting as a reliever, stress reliever for me. It's fun.
So, you basically you do particular type of classes. You do concealed carry, and then you just also have kind of like a basic gun safety class. Is that what happens from your school?
Actually, I do quite a bit more than that. So concealed carry is definitely a bulk of what we do. Concealed carry renewals. We have two different types of basic handgun training. One is actually called basic handgun training or firearms training. That allow males, females, young, older, who are novices with their firearms to come and get training. We have a specific class just for women. It's a women's handgun self-defense fundamentals training class. Women are only allowed in that class because they don't need to feel the competition of big guys like me or the men shooting. They're learning the firearms. We're teaching them how to take them apart, put them back together, how to load, unload, properly stand, grip. And the class was created by a woman for women. I teach a class called Countering the Mass Shooter Threat. We've been hired to go to facilities to help them put together a plan of security to defend against a mass shooter threat if one should arise. I help churches establish and create security teams for their ministries. Um, that kind of uh, goes into a lot of detail in itself, but a lot of churches now realize and understand that they need to have security. I teach the youth fundamental safety course. We teach stop the bleed classes. So I'm an AR instructor as well. So we teach a whole lot more than just concealed carry in a basic handgun class.
So, how many hours is there? Is there a certificate or certification for the gun safety class as well? Or
For
in terms,
me as an instructor or for the students?
well, I guess is there some sort of state mandate or certificate that you get?
No.
There's just
It,
something that you teach about, gun safety, how to clean it, how to take it apart, how to load it. Okay.
yeah, well, the thing about that is you do get a certificate at the end of class. And the reason is, you should be happy and proud of yourself for accomplishing that task. B, if you apply for concealed carry in other states, they would like to know that you are proficient with the firearm, i.e., Florida, Utah, Virginia, states like that. And then C, if you are a veteran, if you've taken a hunter safety course or other trainings, and there's a list that the Illinois State Police gives us, some of those trainings reduce the amount of hours that you have to spend with the concealed carry class.
So handguns are the only thing that you work with? Do you work with rifles or shotguns, anything like that, or just primarily handguns?
I do not work with shotguns. I am a certified AR instructor, so I do teach the AR platform. We just had a class 3 weeks ago where I had 5 students in there learning how to properly utilize their AR for home self-defense.
Yeah. So what is the average cost of a weapon? And what type of weapons are popular right now in terms of owning? And do women have different type of weapons that they would utilize in men, or they both utilize the same? What is it? What are the trends in that?
Well, first of all, I'll say this up front. There are some ladies who come to class, and I am a gun dealer. I'm a FFL, a firearms licensed dealer, federal firearms licensed dealer in the state of Illinois, and then with the ATF. So I get ladies who say, "Well, I want a purple gun, or I want a green gun," or they're thinking about their sororities or their favorite color, not necessarily the functionality of the firearm. So when I teach the basic handgun class or the women's handgun class, I have 7 different firearms that the ladies can touch or the students can touch, fill them, take them apart, rack the slides, see if they like revolvers better than semi-automatics, things like that. I would never tell a person that this is the right gun for them. I would always recommend that they try different firearms, learn how to drop the magazine as the magazine release ambidextrous, like my H&K VP9. My wife is left-handed, so I had to have her magazine release rotated to the other side. There's so many things that go into using a firearm. Um, the feel of it in your hand. Some of the firearms you can change the back grip of them, right? Some of them have longer stocks. Some of them have shorter. And then a lot of people say, "Well, I just want a real small gun." Well, that real small gun has a spring, especially if it's a 9 millimeter, that has a large recoil that goes along with that. So when they buy that really small gun and then they pull that trigger and then the gun goes like this, it's something that they haven't planned for because they bought a gun maybe from the advice of someone else, but they didn't really put their hands on it before using it. So now we have to teach them how to be proficient with what they already have.
So what is the average cost of a handgun now these days?
You can get, wow. So you can get a Taurus, a Ruger, anywhere from 250, $300 entry level firearms, and they shoot very well. I actually keep a Taurus G2C in my gun bag. There's a Stoger. Stogers are known for making great shotguns. I bought a Stoger for $300. It's a full size 4-inch barrel, 15 round magazine. A very entry level firearm, shoots extremely well. My favorite firearms are the Canics. The Canics give you the best trigger reset out of any gun made out the box. You don't have to finagle with it. You don't have to change with it. The trigger reset, and for those who are firearm savvy, they know what that means. If you're not firearm savvy, take one of my classes and you'll know what that means. But the Canic is an entry level gun. You can get a great Canic for $450, $500. And then you can go up from there. My H&K VP9s all cost $900. Kimbers cost 1,200, 1,500. It depends on what you want to spend and what you're utilizing that firearm for.
Hmm. As far as ammunition, how expensive is the ammunition? Because when you talked about having, going out to the range and shooting, and can this be a very expensive hobby in terms of the ammunition?
Not as expensive as golf, but
Oh,
but I remember in 2018 a box of 50 round ammunition was like $13. Now a good 50 round box of ammunition is going to be anywhere from $19 to $25 plus tax. And that's range ammo. That's full metal jacket ammo. That's great for practice at the range, but that is not ideal for using for self-defense. Self-defense, you want to buy self-defense rounds or hollow points. Those particular types of rounds of ammunition are made to mushroom upon impact. The reason that's important, A, it stops the threat without using as many rounds. B, you don't want the round that you fire and go through the intended target and then hit another target because you're still liable for that round of ammunition. So that's why we use hollow points for self-defense. But yeah, you can get a full metal box. Now, some people use aluminum casings, and that's okay for practice. It just creates a lot of dust and a lot of residue in your firearm, which you got to clean it after you shoot anyway. I just choose to use all brass for mine. I don't go with aluminum casing. So
Hmm. What is the average cost of your class for the safety class, and how much does it cost for your concealed carry class?
the safety classes are only $80, and it's a 4-hour class. The women's class is $80, and then we're mandated by USCCA to go to the range and shoot, so that the ladies can actually utilize their firearm in their training. There is a range fee after that, though. The concealed carry class right now, I only charge $180 for the 2 days of training. And when we do a personal training day at the range, which I do offer, I've had quite a few people take advantage of that. If you provide your own ammunition, your own firearm, you pay the range fee, and I charge $50 for my time for an hour.
Yeah. And talking about range, I know you have a new venture that's getting ready to unfold here, where you actually are going to be a range owner. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. So on the 21st of November, I am closing on purchasing a gun range just outside of Sangamon County. Actually, it's the next county over by about half a mile. So um, it's amazing how it happened. The range came for sale. My neighbor is a realtor who knew the people who were selling, and we've had talks back and forth for about 2.5, 3 months now. Um, I prayed on it, talked to God about it, and it was presented to me a second time. I actually didn't move the first time. It was presented to me a second time, and so I started the process of purchasing this firearm range, and um, grateful to God that on November 21st, we'll be sitting at that table closing. Once we close, we're going to make quite a few announcements on social media and other places so that people will understand that EDK will have a facility that we do all of our training, our range shooting. It'll be a membership range. We'll offer classes. A lot of people don't know how to clean their guns, so we're going to offer gun class training, gun cleaning classes. We're going to offer competition shooting, just quite a few things that we can offer for families and for gun enthusiasts to come out and enjoy shooting their firearms in a safe environment.
Hmm. Now, I did a little research on that. I believe there's one other black-owned gun range in Illinois. I think it's in Berwyn, Illinois, I believe it is. And I think in the entire United States, I think there may be three. So you'll be the fifth black-owned uh, gun range owner in the country. Uh, do you see that trend moving even more so as more and more blacks get exposed to gun safety and concealed carry, that those numbers could possibly even increase even more in terms of range ownership?
Well, I did know that I would be the second black owner of a gun range in Illinois. Um, I didn't know I would be fifth in the country, though. That's remarkable. I, I've had the opportunity to be interviewed on radio and television here. And when I was interviewed on radio, the third time actually, one of the things that I said to the host was this. I said, shooting a gun, not only is it a fundamental right to own one per our Constitution, it's a place and it's an activity that it doesn't matter if you're black or white, fat or skinny, tall or short, that you can enjoy doing and have commonality with people that you agree with and that people you disagree with. because once you're on the firing range, we all have one thing in common, which is having fun with our firearms, practicing our skills, honing in on our skills. Um, to be honest with you, Mike, I don't even see it, and I'm honored to be the second African American in the state to do this. Um, but I want to be the caveat to say, especially today in America, that white people and black people can come together and enjoy something in common and just have fun. We don't have to worry about if you're red or blue, left or right, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter. Training is training. Shooting at targets, honing in on your defensive skills. We all should be doing that as free people in the United States of America, and that's the way I see it.
Hmm. So are you the only employee or the only individual with EDK, or do you have any other instructors that you utilize when you get too busy?
I do have two other. Currently, my wife is 49% owner of EDK. And I had to tell her that recently because she sees me do everything and she's like, "Man, baby, you're doing very good." I'm like, "Thank you, but this isn't me. This is us. We own this." So my wife took the instructor course and passed. She is a firearms instructor. I do have another instructor, Myron Hunter. He's an instructor with EDK, and he does quite a bit of work with us as well. So right now, I currently have two instructors. When we open our range, we'll entertain a thought of hiring another person on a part-time basis. They have to pass the USCCA curriculum. They have to buy into our vision that God has given us, and we'll go from there.
Hmm. And you talked about training security teams. What does that look like in terms from a classroom standpoint? Do you guys do situational type things, mass shooter type things? What does a training curriculum look like for a team such as that? And how do what do you do on that?
A security team training is one thing. A security team training for a place of worship is another thing. If we're teaching people about security training, I can do that in a classroom, um, go over a lot of statistics, a lot of scenarios, and then we can go on the range and practice those things. When it comes to a place of worship or a business entity, I host those trainings at their facilities, and I'm going to tell you why. I can give you the basics of security where I am, but we need to take it to where you are so that we can run through scenarios. I was hired by a church in Kankakee to help their security team establish protocols there. And with the tools that we use, I was able to show them through role playing where their weaknesses are and where their strengths were. And that starts with how do we safely secure the entire facility, not just the pastor, not just the choir members, the entire facility. And so it's important that we do that training at your location with some of the tools that we have. But again, just basic training, we can go over security training in the classroom.
Hmm. Talk a little bit about the FBI Citizens Academy that you attended, and what did that encompass, and what were you able to take out of that to utilize in your school?
Well, that class, you have to be invited by someone in the FBI to take that training, and I was. It's a 9-week training course, and we went over a lot of things. There was a lot of interruptions in our classes because the FBI was getting information from cyber threats. I remember one night we were in class, we took a break, and then the word came down that President Trump just said anybody who have TikTok on their phones must delete the app while we were sitting there in class. And so we did a training at the Macon County Sheriff's Department Training Center where we served a search warrant. Um, Mike, it was funny because we were broken into teams of like 7 or 8 people, and we served a search warrant at the wrong address.
Oh man.
And the search, and at the address, we collected drugs, we collected knives, we collected guns, we collected paraphernalia, all kind of things. And then when we went to court, and this was all mock, but we went to court, and I got put on a stand. And man, let me tell you, that attorney, or the FBI, do not play. She made me feel like I really did something wrong,
Hmm.
even though it was just training. So it showed me and it taught me to be very detailed with my paperwork and with things that I do. But it also shows me the details that the FBI go through whenever they serve a search warrant, or when they're searching for a victim or a criminal and things like that. But it was a great training.
Hmm. Are there any insurance issues as it relates to you owning a weapon and having insurance on your home in terms of, do you get a break? I know if you have a burglar alarm system in your house, the insurance company gives you a break. Do you know of any incentives for individuals that own weapons in their home that insurance companies give, or if in fact is there more of a liability with a gun that they could possibly charge you more on your homeowner's insurance, or if that's something you know anything about?
As far as homeowners insurance goes, there are additional riders that you can add to protect yourself, but those riders are limited. I strongly suggest anyone who owns a firearm have some type of legal insurance, so that if you defend yourself, you're protected. I totally recommend the USCCA. If you do join the USCCA, tell them Eddie Kimble sent you, and you will get a $200 perk at the store. Why do I recommend insurance for carrying or owning a gun, Mike? Because we insure everything that means something to us: our money, our cars, our homes, our lives, our children, our bank accounts. Well, if something should happen and I need to defend my family, I realize there's a process. I realize I will be arrested. I realize I will have to go to court. I realize I will have to miss time from work. I realize my firearm will be taken. USCCA is an entity that helps provide financial support in all of those categories, with legal teams and across all 50 states. So whereas my homeowners might be lacking, USCCA covers me. I'm also a member of Legal Shield. Okay. Legal Shield has perks for firearm owners. Legal Shield helped me with some of my other paperwork that I need for when I was going through my knee surgeries, when I had to go to court for a traffic violation. I don't believe I can have enough insurance. I believe you should have more than what's recommended, just in case you need it.
Hmm. Um, just have a couple more questions for you as it relates to gun safety. When you talked about the children as young as, did you say 7 years old? You said as
Yes.
young as 7 years old that you train. Uh, what has been your experience with those individuals that young age in terms of their interests, moving forward as they get older in weapons, or if it's just something that when they take the class just to know about, the damage that a weapon can do, or if in fact if they see it around the house, or if it's something that, hey, I like to shoot, I like to shoot guns. I know in the rural areas, when you have kids that grow up in rural areas, they hunt and fish and do a lot of outdoorsman type things. But when you start talking about kids that are in the urban areas or from the inner cities, that's something that's foreign to them.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, Mike. First of all, the Department of Natural Resources have something called a hunter safety course. The hunter safety course is a free class that's taught all across the state of Illinois to help parents with their children become educated around firearms, hunter safety, and other things like that. I am a volunteer instructor with that class or with that course. Um, but when it comes to children, one of the things I know about children is they can easily be influenced. In our culture today, in our community today, in our world today, children are taught about sex education. Condoms are being handed out in school, and a lot of other things. I just think that if parents would allow their children to be trained with firearms, they won't think it's the same thing as playing Call of Duty or some of these other trainings. So I'm sorry, some of these other games that they're playing. And so when I have a training class for youth, And some of the children in my class are special needs. And when they walk out that class, they understand that I don't touch a gun. I talk to my dad or my mom if I see one, or my guardian. I stay away from that. That lets me know that I was able to help save a life, because firearms don't hurt people. It's people doing things they should not do with firearms that hurt people. So training our children, I think our schools should be teaching our children about firearms. They're the softest target in this country. And unfortunately, it's so political that they refuse to teach our children about firearm safety. It should be a curriculum. If sex education can be a curriculum to teach children about different sex styles and types, we should be able to teach our children about firearm safety.
Hmm. Have you ever had to draw your weapon on anyone?
Well, Mike, I teach something called situational awareness. And situational awareness is where you are paying close attention to your surroundings, so much so that people know that you've noticed them. And if they had any ambitions on doing something wrong to you, they think about it and generally go a different way. I have been fortunate enough to not have to draw my firearm on anyone, but I've had some close calls.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, so your range itself said you're closing on it on November the 21st. You said so. When will you actually be open for business?
I am hoping to open January 2nd, providing weather is good for us. I've already talked to a couple of contractors. There are some changes that we're going to make to the gun range. The people who built it did a fantastic job with it, but we're going to put, our image on there. We're going to put our the way we see it, the way God has given us to see it. So we're making some changes with that, and depending on weather, hopefully the first week of January. Like I said, I'm in the process of creating the range rules and some other things, the policies and procedures, because it will be a membership range. We will have people there some hours. It won't be a person there every day, but it will be persons there several days throughout the week. Um, and then, of course, on all the days that we do our training, we will have people there. But it's an exciting time, Mike. I just can't speak enough to how God just opened this door for us. It's a passion, and it's going to really take us to the next level of helping responsible gun owners become proficient with their firearms and their training.
Yeah. So is this a range, indoor range or outdoor range or a combination of the two or what?
This range is an indoor range.
Okay. Which means you can shoot all year round no matter what the weather is, basically.
Exactly. And with it being a membership range, the hours will be from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. So anytime throughout that day, you'll get a code, an access code, to gain entry into the range. There will be safety rules that everyone will sign off on their contract to be a member. Safety rules will be posted. Um, and believe it or not, Mike, I would say if there's 100 million gun owners, 99% of them are safe gun owners. We value life. We value our firearms. We value practicing and training with our tools. And so it's just a matter of, just like anything else in life, having some rules in place and allowing people to come out and have a great time. We're going to have family nights where families can come in and shoot. We're going to have date nights where couples can come in and have competition shooting. So it's just going to be a lot of fun, at the range.
Hmm. All righty. Just is there anything else that I didn't ask and maybe you might want to touch on, or any more you want to tell us about your business itself? Anything else that I might have missed?
You've been very thorough. I would state that as we do this transition, our website will go through some updates. Our social media platforms will go through some updates. Um, we we want to welcome any and everybody to our facility and to our classes. Um, as far as, regardless if you're a novice or if you're intermediate, we're already enrolled in other classes next year that we'll bring back to our range, that we can do things like defensive shooting workshops, where instead of just putting out a target, shooting at a target, you're moving around, you're drawing your firearm from your holster, just a lot of other details and things that we're going to provide. So I would just tell people to stay tuned. If you have not friended EDK on Facebook or Instagram, go ahead and friend us. Right now, most of our information is broadcast that way. Again, once we close on the range, we will start doing some commercials via radio and television as well, maybe some mailers. But we're just excited, Mike. This is a great time for us.
Yeah. And how does someone get in touch? Do you have a phone number for the school?
Yes, our contact number is 217-900-0477. And our email address is EDK Defensive Consultants at yahoo.com. And our website is www.edkdefensiveconsultants.com.
All righty. Well, there you have it then. We've had Eddie Kimble, owner of EDK Consultants, uh, as our guest today, and he has enlightened us on gun safety and gun ownership and anything and everything that you would want to know about weapons. Right now in this country, it seems like there is division as it relates to guns themselves. We just had another shooting in Maine where I think it was 18 individuals were murdered senselessly. And one other question I want to ask you as it relates to gun safety, and I guess the whole thing with mental health and how that plays into gun violence. Is there anything you want to say about that in relationship to weapons?
I'm glad you circled back to that, Mike. That shooting in Maine was so unfortunate for many reasons. But the biggest reason, it was a gun-free zone. And so one of the fathers stated that his son was a hero because his son tried to attack the shooter with a knife. And I was taught in the military and the streets of Chicago will teach you never bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
So when you have signs on the door, or when people know, because that person was from that community, he knew that no one in there would be allowed to carry a firearm. So those people were easy targets, Mike. And it's unfortunate. Um, it's just a shame that, again, in our country, that they make it harder for those of us who abide by the laws and the rules to defend ourselves. But those who choose to do criminal activity have a free for all. When it comes to mental health, I remember back in 2011, 2012, here in Illinois, where they closed down 50% of the mental institutions in this state. I know because some of the employees of those facilities were clients of my insurance company that I had. 50%. Chicago had 12, they reduced down to 6. Illinois closed their largest one that was in Tinley Park. That was then, Mike. Now we have people who are suffering all kind of illnesses. And I'm not saying it's an excuse, but what I'm saying is if our country and our leadership would take more time and provide more services to people who are going through more things in life to help them instead of pushing them away, I think things like the mass shooting that happened in Maine will change because that person is a veteran like I am. That person's military command post said that he had issues, sent him in for 2 weeks. His family said that he had issues. Where was the help at, Mike? We're focusing on the fact that he had a long rifle. We're focusing on the fact that he committed harm to a lot of people. But we're not focusing on the fact that time and time again, our country is doing nothing to help people in the United States of America who's battling mental illness, hunger, homelessness. And so for that reason, I frown on taking billions of dollars helping countries that I'll never set foot in, that would never profit me or benefit me. But yet and still I can walk out my door and go 5 miles down the road and find homeless people that are starving. What is America doing to help us? What is America doing to help those who are mentally ill? Why is America taking all of our money, giving it to other countries, and raising our inflation? Why is America not helping us?
Interesting. And on that note, Eddie, thank you for coming on. And once you get open up, we'll probably do another show with you. We'd like to see how it's going. This is a very controversial issue in the country right now, that of weapons. And there are so many other for, that are so many other against. When you talk about your urban areas and the gun violence, how people want to point to, we need to get the guns off the street. And I guess, one of the arguments, I guess, that I guess when people make about the whole thing of weapons, when you pass laws, basically, most people that are law abiding are going to follow the law, but the individuals who aren't law abiding aren't going to follow the law. So does that mean that only people who will have weapons will be the criminals? I mean, that's the question, I guess, and that most people can ask. And if in fact that's the case, then what happens to the law-abiding citizens? So I mean, and that's the thing, that's a debate that will go on and on and on, because everybody will see it differently. So I
Can
commend
I
you.
say
And
something to that, Mike?
sure, go right ahead.
The unfortunate incident that happened in Israel is very sad and disheartening. But one of the things that Israel has taught us, and Ukraine, is that just because you take firearms away from people does not make you safe. So Netanyahu told every citizen of Israel to get their firearms, get your arms, and let's go to war. Well, had those people had firearms out there, Mike, some of them might still be alive. Some of them might not have been hostages. Same with Ukraine. They took all their firearms away and made them a safe country. Now their friend slash enemy, now from their back door, their neighbor, has invaded their country. And America is going down the same path. We're helping Ukraine. We're helping um, Taiwan. We're helping Israel. We're spreading ourselves so thin, and all these other countries that don't like us see us doing that, Mike. But yet and still our political leaders are saying, even though we're helping all these other countries, we're going to disarm America. What message is that sending to our enemies, Mike? So it's something that our leadership in the United States of America need to wake up and see.
Okay, Eddie, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was very enlightening. I learned something uh, about weapons myself, in terms of the concealed carry, having a license, and doing things the right way. So Eddie, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Mike Pittman, is always a great time to be spent with you, man. I really appreciate all you do for us. So thank you.